And in very short order, Derek Bell and Jochen Maas and Schupin and Al Holbert all called, and they were ready to go. My friends, if you want to attract the best people, you have to have an interesting challenge. None of them asked what we were prepared to pay. They figured we'd get all that settled. It was the opportunity to be a part of something big, an opportunity to help build a temple, that brought these people into the fold. Well, we went to race at Le Mans 1981, and the number 11 car with Jackie Ickx and Derek Bell won the race, set all kinds of records. Incidentally, nobody ever asked what it cost. To this day, they won the race, but what I want to share with you is not the story of the number 11 car that won, but the sister car, the number 12 car, that didn't. Because, you see, this car had a problem on the very first lap and had to come back in to change a defective spark plug, and was last after one lap. Well, these folks went back out, drove their hearts out. 24 hours is a very long time. The race starts at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. By 8:30 that evening, the number 12 car had passed all the other cars, was back in second place, and our two cars ran 1-2 through the night until at 3:45 in the morning, the number 12 car came into the pits to refuel and never left. There was a defective bearing in the clutch. Now that's a little nothing on a Porsche, costs $2.50, but it's an inexpensive little bearing, relatively inexpensive little bearing. But in order to repair that car, you had to disassemble the whole car. And friends, that's where I witnessed the next miracle. As I observed how a crew of mechanics that hadn't slept for 36 hours disassembled a race car in the dark. Parts of it were so hot that their gloves were almost catching fire. But there was no time to wait for things to cool off. There were pieces and nuts and bolts and wrenches all over the place. Nobody spoke very much, and in 52 minutes, that car was reassembled and ready to run. And Hurley Haywood, one of our American drivers, drove in and immediately began to set record lap times in an attempt to catch the leaders. Now, the thing about that blew me away is, first of all, what kind of trust does it take in your fellow man to not drive a couple of slow laps, to make sure? I mean, there's no warranty anyway, but, to make sure things, that never occurred to Hurley. And I went over to Mr. Bott and I said, Mr. Bott, tell me, how long does it take to disassemble and reassemble a Porsche 936 race car? Not in the dark, but in a well-lighted shop, not by a crew of mechanics that hasn't slept for 36 hours, but by well-rested union people, and these were all union people, incidentally. And oh yes, one other thing, it must be a zero defects job, right the first time. Well, he thought for a minute and he said, I think you'd have to figure 6 to 8 hours. And I had just seen it done in 52 minutes. Now, I'm not trying to tell you that 52 minutes is the right time. I mean, nobody can run a 100-yard dash every hour, and you can only have a cavalry charge once in a generation. But would you believe maybe, 3 to 4 hours? Now, what I learned right then and there is that under the right circumstances, we as managers have virtually no idea what our people are capable of. And if you think about that situation and those 4 questions I gave you before, you can see how clearly every one of those 4 questions was answered in that circumstance. And, we worry in Germany about things like 35-hour work weeks when we've got a whole world that we can accomplish without quibbling over those things. Well, after that 1981 race, as so often happens, all of the racing rules were changed. There were some, who said that was to try to break the dominance of Porsche winning Le Mans. If that was the case, it didn't work. But anyway, the 936 was never to race again, and in the summer and fall of '81, we had to design and build a whole new race car called a 956, which is similar to the one displayed in the lobby. And in the summer of '82, we went back to Le Mans with 3 brand new untried cars numbered 1, 2, and 3. The time was so short that the third car was finished in Weissach on Thursday and qualified in France on Friday. Well, incidentally, the number 3 car was driven by 2 Americans, Hurley Haywood and Al Holbert, and so being a patriotic American, I had them paint an American flag on the roof of the car. This was my all-American entry. And before the car was shipped from Weissach, I was talking to Al Holbert in the presence with an earshot of our Schwabian mechanics, and in a burst of patriotic enthusiasm, I said, you know, Al, I would be prepared to pay to bring a team of American mechanics over, and then we would really have an all-American team. You know, without hesitating, right out of the heart, Al said, Peter, we'd rather win. You know, the fascinating thing about that is it was unplanned. The effect on our German mechanics was electrifying. You know, we forget so often to tell people how important they are. We frequently tell somebody else and forget to tell them. Well, anyway, we won that race. As a matter of fact, the 3 cars finished in the order of their start numbers 1, 2, 3. And it was total dominance, and they sort of drove the last 2 or 3 laps in an echelon formation, which was a little bit of nonsense, but understandable under the circumstances. And after the race, some journalists pulled me aside, and they said, Mr. Schutz, how do you explain this? 3 brand new cars, untried, you come here, a whole new deal, and total dominance. What I told them is, I think you're seeing this wrong. You see, the cars are new, but the people aren't. And these are the same people that won last year. Because, my friends, cars do not win races. People win races. After that race, my wife Sheila and I came to the United States, as we do every year, and we went to the annual meeting of the Porsche Club, which is about 1,000, 1,500 strong, and there they have something called a goodie store. And in this goodie store, among other things, they sell something, it's an American art form called a T-shirt. And incidentally, the mayor of Stuttgart is Manfred Rommel, the son of the World War II general. I brought him a T-shirt that year that said, if you live a good life and take good care of your Porsche, when you die, you will go to Stuttgart. But the shirt I want to tell you about is a shirt I bought for Mr. Bott, who heads our engineering and research, and on this T-shirt was a slogan, the unknown author of which will never know the deep influence he or she has had on the way I view this situation. Because, you see, on this T-shirt on the front, it said, Le Mans 82 Porsche wins again. That wasn't anything so interesting. On the back, it said, surprise. You can change the rules, but you can't change the results. And you see, I said to myself, that's really what I'm talking about. Because if I paraphrase that, what it really says, that if in your organization you succeed in putting together the best people, if you organize them so they have permission to perform, and then motivate them so that they want to, then the more the rules change, the bigger you will win. See, the fact of the matter is, the only thing that we agree on, and that is that we're going to see more change, is the only thing you then have to hope for so that you can do your thing with the right sort of people. And I just want to leave you with a very short story about competition, because it taught me what that's all about. And it's a story about the 2 men who went hunting, and were suddenly confronted by a large angry bear, and both of them panicked. One of them began digging around in his backpack like crazy, and the other one turned to him and said, "My God, what are you looking for?" He says, "I'm getting my running shoes out." He says, "Oh, that doesn't make any sense. You can't outrun a bear." He says, "I don't have to outrun a bear. I just have to outrun you." So, I want to thank you very much for this opportunity. It was truly an honor. God bless you.